All right, so I'm joined by my guy Reagan Griffin Jr. So how you doing, man, today? What's good?
I'm doing great, man. It's a beautiful day in paradise.
No doubt, no doubt. So you go to USC. You were enrolled there as a student. So we're gonna talk some USC football. We'll get to a lot of stuff right here, but I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts. I don't go to a big time school like USC. USC
Right.
is one of the more known schools in America. I go to the University of Toledo. Go Rockets. That's the best fit for me. But either way, you are a guy that studies at the University of Southern California. So kind of talk about just the life of being a student at USC and just go from there. What are you studying? Things of that nature. So what's it like at USC?
Man, it is what you make it. And I know the tendency is to think, right? Like, it's University of Southern California. It's one of the biggest schools in the nation. It's a private school. There's a lot of news and controversy around it all the time. You're right in the heart of LA. You can live that fast-paced lifestyle if you'd like to. The parties every weekend and all going celebrity searching on Hollywood Boulevard and all that. I'm more of a guy that likes to take things a little bit slower. I only get so much free time throughout my weekend. When I do get it, I'm more of a relaxing type of person. But it is what you make it, because I know plenty of people who are the exact opposite way and want to go out every opportunity that they get. And there are those opportunities pretty much all the time, man. So it's a very big school. It's pretty diverse. You get to meet a lot of different people coming from a lot of different backgrounds. I'm talking like dudes from Minnesota. I'm talking from people out of the country. You get to see pretty much every perspective possible. That's probably one of my favorite parts about it. But what I study is journalism, so that means I'm in the school of Annenberg. Annenberg is the School of Communications and Journalism. And the biggest thing, man, they have the media center, which is pretty much a news grade style of it's almost like walking into a newsroom. And that's what I really that's the biggest reason that convinced me that I needed to go to USC is the hands-on experience that you can get in terms of podcasting. Like, I know you do a lot of your stuff, and a lot of your stuff is self-made, and I gotta imagine that was a really, really tough process of garnering all the cool
Tell me about it. The grind is hard, man. The grind's hard, but go ahead.
Imagine going through all of that, and that's what USC really did for me is, alleviate me of having to do all of those, groundwork things. And it really had a lot of stuff already set up to just go ahead and use, like the podcast center and all of that stuff. So that's really the biggest advantage that I really love about the school. It's a very sports cultural centric school, especially in terms of football, which we'll get to. That's one of the other things that I really appreciate is that people are there are very sports minded, and I'm a very sports minded individual. But I love it there, man. I don't regret the decision. It's heavy on the pockets, man. I'll tell you that. I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship to go there, but it's not a cheap school to go to. There's definitely always that's the one guarantee that you can get about USC. The football team goes up and down. The basketball team goes up and down. You might like your professors. You might not like your professors. Da da da. But the one thing that's always going to be consistent at USC is controversy. Every single year, it's something else going on with that school, man. I'm sure you heard about the whole Lori Loughlin situation and her paying her kids way into the school and all that.
Yep.
Whether it's Reggie Bush, you walk into they have the center with all the Heismans that the school's ever gotten. Reggie Bush's Heisman ain't in there, man. They don't, they basically don't acknowledge the existence of Reggie Bush at that school, which is beyond me considering how great of a player that he was, and considering that the school had as much of a hand in the breaking the rules as Reggie Bush did. But yeah, it's just so much controversy around the school. That's probably the biggest drawback of it. But for everything that it offers outside of that, I love it to death, man. I already love it.
Now, was USC always on your radar?
Growing up, I played football growing up, and childhood dreams and all that. I grew up a Stanford fan because I idolized Andrew Luck, and
Okay.
I wanted to be a guy who played quarterback in college. And I always said, I want to go be Andrew Luck. I want to go play at Stanford and do that. And then I realized maybe I'm not that good of a quarterback, and maybe I'm not smart enough to go to Stanford. Maybe I'm not smart enough to get into Stanford either. So maybe let's knock those expectations down a little bit. And, once I realized that sports journalism was the direction that I wanted to go, I tried to find a place that would help me from a journalism standpoint, and B, put me in an environment where I was around a lot of sports. And that was, USC off the bat. You're not only is USC a sports-centric school, but you're right there next to the Los Angeles Clippers, the Los Angeles Lakers, the Rams, the Chargers, the Kings, the Dodgers, the Angels. All these sports teams are right there in front of you to go watch and cover and all of that. And the journalism school is one of the best in the country. So from that standpoint, it immediately stood out to me. And then it was just a matter of cultivating some of the relationships within people. For people that went to the school and some of the professors and such, everyone was a joy to be around. I learned a lot from a lot of people before I even stepped foot on campus. So from there, it was a match made in heaven. The deeper I looked into the school.
So what is it? We're talking about football here for USC. We'll get to that in a little bit, okay? But what is it like actually going to a football game? Did you go to football games or did you pass?
I always went to the football games.
Okay.
And it's funny because, I say that USC is a sports-centric school, and it is. But to be 100% honest, it's more of a culture thing than it is an actual sports thing because, people want to go to the tailgates and they want to dress up in the USC stuff. But I actually stepped foot in the stadium. I feel like I'm one of the few people that are actually intensely focused on what's happening on the field. It becomes more of a social event than an actual. You know what I mean?
That is funny. It's the typical California team. People talk about the Rams fan base. They talk about the Chargers fan base. Are those fans really diehard Chargers fans? Are they really diehard, Rams fans? That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, man. Especially, it's tough to garner a true football fan base in Los Angeles. I think USC has done a good job of it.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Outside of the student section, I'm sure all of those people are diehard USC fans. But, specifically because I'm a student, I go to the student section. And, to be quite honest, it's a lot of, people who really don't, I just hear around me, so what happens when they reach the red part? So it's like, oh my gosh. It's like, are y'all really, here for the game, or are you here for the social event of it? But even with all that, the fact that people are there supporting the team, I'm sure it means a lot to the guys in the field. It's an indictment on the support that people, even though they might not know a whole lot about what's actually going on, people are still going to be down to support the team and whatnot. They cheer at the right times. I'll give them that. So, as long as you can bring that energy, I think it's a positive thing.
That is very funny. I'm glad I got that insight right there. Now let's talk about the actual football team. So USC, one of the most storied programs in college football history. 9 national titles. Everyone knows about USC versus Texas. That was a great game. Maybe not for USC, but you know what I'm saying? But either way, a part of history. I would say a part of history. Let's just go back to the last couple of years. Let's trace back to 2016. Because I think that the last couple of years kind of defies USC football a little bit. So 2016, you have Sam Darnold at quarterback. For the Jets, he goes there. I think that he's going to be at least a stable quarterback. We'll see if the Jets give him some more help. But either way, you win a Rose Bowl 2016. 2017 lose to the Ohio State Buckeyes in the Fiesta Bowl. Yeah, I believe so. I'm actually a supporter of Ohio State, so sorry if you're a USC fan listening to that. Wasn't a great game for you guys, but hey, I had a little kick in watching that. But either way, 2018 was not the best season. 5-7 record, a lot of growing pains. And 2019, this past year, JT Daniels, a quarterback that I actually liked, he's a former 5-star. He got hurt, and Keaton Slav steps in. I gotta tell you, he played pretty darn well. You guys went to a bowl game. You lost to Iowa, but I think that USC football has to be kind of proud of their football team this past season. So I just want to kind of talk about, where do you think USC is as a program right now? Obviously, the recruiting was down this past year in 2020, but 2021, the recruiting starting to go up a little bit more. We'll talk about that a little bit more down the road. But just where do you see USC as a program right now? Are they trending up, trending down? Where would they rank amongst Pac-12 teams? What are your thoughts?
Man, it is a program that is undoubtedly trending up, and it's trending up fast, man. It's really, from a journalist perspective, I get to the opportunity to have some of I get to be plugged in a little bit more than the average fan. And it's just so exciting to see everything that's happening right now. And it started, with, we hired a new, the school hired a new athletic director, Mike Bone. So obviously the Lynn Swan era didn't go the way everyone would have hoped. The football team was still good, but from what I can gauge, a lot of people just felt like it was a settling for mediocrity. Especially with Clay Helton, and a lot of people didn't want to see Clay Helton come back. People were clamoring for a guy like Urban Meyer, go poach James Franklin from Penn State, go get PJ Fleck from Minnesota. But Mike Bone comes in and he ultimately makes a decision to say, okay, we're going to keep Clay Helton for at least one more year. We're going to give him another opportunity. The team got a lot of injuries this year. We're going to give him an opportunity to see what he can do. And although that hadn't changed, and I'm not going to lie, I was part of the people that was criticizing Mike Boone for making the decision because it felt to me at the time that in keeping Clay Helton, you're settling for mediocrity. My mom always liked to say, nothing changes until something changes, which might not make a whole lot of sense at first, but essentially what she's getting at is, nothing's going to change until you change something about the situation. So you have to do something to improve the result. So I wasn't sure about retaining Clay Helton, but it did change, Jamon. So what happened was that they went and they changed the defense. They pretty much cleaned house on the defensive side. The offense was already pretty much set with Graham Harrell. You talked about Keaton Slovis. Man, if y'all don't know that name, everyone listen to this right now. If you don't know the name Keaton Slovis, if you don't know, now you know. Because that dude is going to be playing on Sundays one day. That kid is an absolute
throws a beautiful football. Beautiful football.
He throws a beautiful football. The plays he displays in the pocket for a guy who was a 3-star prospect, a freshman backup quarterback that had to come in for, the miraculous JT Daniels. So for somebody facing that amount of pressure, for him to come in and handle himself, not just on the field, but off the field with the poise that he had, that dude just screams. He screams franchise quarterback to me. I don't know if he's going to be this exceptionally talented dude that we see, but he's just, from a mentality standpoint, the dude is just gifted, man. So the offense has been set, but the defense is what needed to change. They went out and they hired Todd Orlando from Texas, actually. So they went and got their butts whooped by Orlando, right? So they go out and they poach the dude. And they say, okay, this is a guy that's known for his quick turnarounds. He's gone from place to place, and in every place, he's been able to get the defense going in a better direction fairly quickly. So they went and they grabbed him. And along with Orlando, they grabbed guys like Craig Navarre. He's the new safety coach. They got Dante Williams. They poached him from Oregon. He's the new cornerbacks coach. They got Vic So'oto. He's the new defensive line coach. And all of these guys, right, they stress physicality, intensity, really pushing the team to its limit during practice. And that's something because a lot of people had issues with the lackadaisicalness and the lack of, toughness, essentially, that the team displayed at certain moments. Going and getting these guys, that's going to alleviate that issue off the bat. They're going to make sure that they put these guys, what basically they've been saying is they're going to put these guys through the ringer in the preseason. So when it comes time to actually play some football games, they've been to those dark places and they know how to, emerge from those places victorious. And they stress the physicality of the game. And, at the very least, if nothing else, this USC defense is going to be improved in the fact that it's going to be mean. And, a mean defense goes a long way. If you have a dude snarling in your face for the entirety of the football game, at the very least, you can't really, it's tough to keep up with from that standpoint. And the thing that's really I love about these new hires is not only are they bringing that intensity to the field, but they're bringing it to every facet of the program, right? So even in recruiting, they're going out, and you talked about how great the 2021 class is. Man, these guys are, in the past, you've seen USC kind of rest on its haunches a little bit and basically say, yes, we're the story program. We're in Southern California. We have this established culture already. Why wouldn't you come to us? And they're essentially resting on their laurels on the fact that they're USC and expecting that to be enough to get recruits to come to the school. No, these guys are going out there. Now they're actually cultivating real relationship with these kids. And that goes, trust me, I've known a lot of people that have gone through the recruiting process, and I know how far cultivating a real relationship with a coach can go in terms of getting that kid to come to your school. That's what these guys are doing. They're on Twitter. These guys are working 24/7, 365 at making sure that these prospects know that they're going to be welcomed, loved, and appreciated, but at the same time, they're going to work their asses off once they come to USC. They're making that known, and you're seeing the results of it. I think they have the number 5 recruiting class in the country, and not to mention that Corey Foreman, who just decommitted from Clemson, the number 1 prospect in the 2021 class, dude just decommitted from Clemson because he wants to stay close to home. Asking you where Corey Foreman's from.
California.
Southern California, man. He went to Centennial, and if you look at 247 Sports right now, apparently he's like, the word on the street is that dude's, he might be coming to SC. So that's going to be adding to that 2021 class. The energy that, Graham Harrell and the new defensive staff are bringing to this program. They're winning in every facet of the game. Even things like videography, right? The video staff, they went and, do you ever see that, the video with the Joe Burrow on senior night, and the back of the jersey had the...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. They coached the guys who were doing that from LSU and brought them to USC because they want to win in that facet. And they said, we're not only are we going to be great on the field, not only are we going to be great recruiting, but we're going to be great at marketing ourselves as well. They're really putting an emphasis on winning in every single facet of the game. There's a quote from Mike Bone. He said, anything that's worth keeping score of, we want to be first. And that's essentially what I'm seeing with the program top to bottom right now. They're really committed to being that top tier program that they have been in years past, that they were with the Pete Carroll era. They want to get that back. And I see it's definitely a program trending up right now. I love it, man.
I want to touch on Clay Helton a little bit more specifically. I have kind of been a little critical of Clay Helton myself. I was actually surprised that he was brought back. Like you mentioned, let's evaluate Clay Helton for a second, okay? I don't think he's a bad coach. He's a solid coach. He's won a Rose Bowl before. He actually has gotten on the phone and scheduled some tough opponents. So I actually like that about him. I like the fact that he's not too scared to play Alabama or some of these out-of-conference teams. Obviously, the recruiting class in 2020 was not good. It was 54th in the country. Oregon State had a better recruiting class. So he's got to take that L right there. He's a solid recruiter, but he's got to hold the L right there. As you mentioned, the 2021 class is going up as far as recruiting, so that's good to hear. But I want to get your thoughts on Clay Helton as a head coach. Is he the guy for the job, or do you think that USC kind of needs to upgrade? I think that they're more so on the side that they may potentially need to upgrade down the road. I don't know if Urban Meyer is going to come back to coach college football. I can't take Urban Meyer seriously as a Buckeye supporter at times just because at Florida he said he was going to retire due to migraines. Then the guy comes back, doesn't miss a beat, and I don't know. I just think I'm a little bit of hit and miss with Urban Meyer as far as what he puts out to the media as far as how he feels himself. So I won't be surprised if he returns to coaching, but I do think that he's more so out the door as far as coaching goes, more so than coming back into the door of coaching. But what are your thoughts on Clay Helton as a head coach? How's he done so far?
Sometimes, man, the mark of a good leader isn't necessarily how much they actually put forth towards the goal of success that they're trying to accomplish. Sometimes the mark of a good leader is how much they trust the people around them to do. And they surround themselves with the right people, and they allow those people to do their jobs. We criticize James Dolan. This is kind of a little bit off topic, but I'm getting at a larger point here.
Oh, go ahead, man. You got time.
James Dolan, he brings in these people, but then he tries to have his hands in with everything that's going on within the organization, whether it's, from a player recruitment standpoint, a player development standpoint, a player evaluation standpoint. He always likes to have his hands in it, and that's why the Knicks have been suffering for so long, and everyone's, clamoring for him to sell the team. He's not a good leader because he wants to have his hands in everything and micromanage everyone. Clay Helton, from what I can gauge, he's not that type of dude, and he's right now surrounding himself with the right people. Graham Harrell he's a product of that Mike Leach coaching tree. He knows the air raid in and out. We saw how great that offense could be. I think they were 20th in the country last year, and they're only going to continue to get better now that Keaton Silvas has more time under his belt. You look at receivers like Tyler Bonds, Brew McCoy, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Drake London, Kyle Ford. There's so much talent on this offense, and Graham Harrell is going to be so good in terms of cultivating that into being something successful. He's surrounding himself with all these great defensive coaches, Todd Orlando, Craig Navarro, the guys that I just mentioned that are not only going to raise the intensity on the defensive side of the ball, but they're also winning in the realm of recruiting. I wasn't a fan of Clay Helton when I first got to USC because it seemed like he was the guy that was going to be, it almost was the equivalent of Marvin Lewis. The team was never going to be that bad, but it was never going to be as good as you want it to be. So you might have to get him out of the door if you really want to ascend to the pinnacle of college football success amongst the LSUs and the Alabamas. But what I'm observing now is that although he might not be the greatest, strategy head coach, and he might not be the most intense guy, he's a steady head for the organization and the program as a whole, and he's getting great people around him, and he's allowing those people to do their job. So from that standpoint, I think that you give Clay Helton another opportunity. I agree with the decision from Mike Bone, and he might not be the stereotypical college football great head coach, but I appreciate the fact that he's a good enough leader to bring in smart people and guys that are capable of pushing the team towards that goal. And allowing them to do their jobs without putting his hands in it too much. I think that's the mark of a really good leader. So from that standpoint, I think that USC was smart to keep him for another year.
No doubt, no doubt. So let's talk about Keaton Slovis. I was impressed. I really was. It is not it doesn't take much time to watch him on film and realize that guy has a live arm and some NFL potential. I want to get your thoughts on how he progressed as the season went on. What do you see him as far as a prospect goes for the NFL? Let's also talk about JT Daniels. I think that he is kind of in an unfortunate situation with the ACL tear. God bless his heart. I hope he comes back healthy and dominates. He's not the starting quarterback anymore at USC. I understand the decision Clay Helton made, but I still think that JT Daniels has some talent. I think that he underwhelmed me a little bit just from projecting what he could have became from high school because he was a 5-star recruit to what he put out on the actual college football field. I think that he still needs to work on the little things, but I still think there is some talent with JT Daniels, and there is some talk that he potentially is going to return to USC. So what are your thoughts on both of those quarterbacks as prospects, and is there still hope for JT Daniels?
Man, I'll start with JT, and I actually have a funny story. After going to one of the football games, and this was after he got hurt, my friends and I, we were walking back to our dorm, and as we're walking back, we're on kind of the alleyway that a lot of the athletes have to go through once they leave the locker room. And as we're walking back, we're on the sidewalk, and we're all talking, having fun and whatnot, and we hear a voice behind us, and we're like, it's just like, excuse me, cripple coming through. Just the saddest, most depressed voice you could ever hear. Mind you, Keaton had a brilliant night, right? Just a sad voice, excuse me, cripple coming through. And it's JT Daniels on one of those electric scooters, just the ones you have to sit down like you're an old lady in the grocery store, just rolling on through, man. But that dude just looked sad, man. And I felt genuinely bad because, like you said, that dude was a hell of a high school quarterback. He just ran through the Trinity League. And when I say he ran through the Trinity League, mind you, the Trinity League is probably the best high school football league in the entire nation. We're talking about schools like Mater Dei, J. Sarah, St. John Bosco. These are the schools that you have to compete with when you're in the Trinity League. And JT ran through all of them. Where I think his biggest mistake was, I think he went to college a little too early. I know he reclassified. So essentially, he was a high school, what should have been a high school senior, actually starting at quarterback for USC in his first year. He wasn't ready, man. As good as he was in high school, the dude wasn't ready to take on that much of a load, and it showed because he wasn't the guy that everyone expected him to be. And then in year 2, he obviously had the injury. And Keaton, that dude just handled that entire situation with such poise. Not once would he ever assert, I should be the starting quarterback. He's thought it. But he never came for JT in any sort of way. But the poise that he handled himself with on the field, man. There were so many times where it was almost a guaranteed sack that Keaton would somehow find his way out of, keep his eyes downfield, maintain his poise, find a Michael Pittman all the way downfield wide open. This dude, at such a young age, for him to have that level of poise and maturity as a quarterback, not only on the field but off of it, Keaton Slovis is, I'm such a huge fan of his, man. Such a huge fan. It's weird to say because the dude is literally my age. But I played quarterback. We talked about how I wanted to be a quarterback at Stanford, man. I know how tough it is to play that position and play it at the level that he does, and for him to take on that much of a load at that age and to be that successful with it, it's miraculous, man. It is miraculous, and I think he's definitely an NFL caliber prospect. Some years down the line, he's by no means a perfect quarterback. He still has some developing to do, particularly in his short range accuracy. But yeah, I think when it's all said and done, I'm not sure how long Keaton is going to stay at USC. I think there's a decent chance that by the end of his junior year, the dude might be headed for Sundays, man. In regards to JT, though, I still think he's a guy that has enough talent to make it to the NFL. Like you said, I think he just got a raw deal in terms of what happened at USC. He never really got the opportunity to show the full extent of his abilities. And I know a lot of people, man, they're just completely out on him. They think he's a bust. They think he was an overrated prospect coming out of high school. Like, no stretch of the word. You don't run through the Trinity League the way that JT Daniels did unless you're a talented quarterback. I just think he fell into an unfortunate situation. And if he plays his card right, whether he stays at USC or whether he goes somewhere else and transfers and tries to go start for another school in the near future, if he ends up in the right situation, there's no reason that I don't think JT Daniels could be a very, very, very good quarterback. Again, he just got a raw deal, man. He got a raw deal.
We'll leave that there. Okay, so I want to talk about expectations for USC football next year. Obviously, great quarterback coming, this next year in Keaton. I think that he's going to be a star, and I think that he has some Heisman Trophy potential in him, okay? And so, obviously, USC, looking at their schedule, I'm just going to highlight some key games. Alabama. Now, there's some potential that might not be the game for week 1 due to, the whole college football with the COVID-19 whole situation. You know, are you going to play Alabama week 1? We don't know. But for now, we'll say Alabama is the week 1 matchup on a neutral site. Tough game. Probably not going to win that one. But either way, at Stanford, Arizona State at home. At Utah, they had a pretty good year last year. At Arizona, probably a winnable game. At Oregon, I think Oregon is probably one of the better Pac-12 teams. I think that they're going to have a very good year. Washington has a new coach, but you get them at home, so there's potential to win that game too. Then Notre Dame at home as well. So looking at USC's schedule, what are your expectations for the team next year, and what's a realistic goal for the team as far as a win total? I do think that they will definitely make a bowl game, no doubt, but what do you think is going to be the record, potentially? What's a realistic expectation?
I think it's realistic to think that the team should lose no more than 1 to 2 games, and I say that wholeheartedly. And the fact that you brought up the Alabama game, I'm not so sure they lose that one, man. And here's why. Let me tell you why, because I know that is a huge leap to take, right? To say that
understandable, yeah,
could beat an Alabama team. But here's the thing: Alabama every year, we know they lose a plethora of starters to the NFL, right? So when you lose that much talent, you have to get some people to replace it. And Alabama does a good job of recruiting every year, and they always have a pool of talent to pick from. But at the end of the day, you have to, get that talent ready to play on the field on Saturdays. And the fact that we have this whole coronavirus thing going around, and the fact that the team can't be on the field practicing and running through the plays and making those mistakes in practice, I think that hurts Alabama a lot because they had a lot of players to replace on the field. Meanwhile, USC is a team that barely lost any starters to the NFL this past season. So you have a bunch of guys who already know the system that they're coming into. They're familiar with it, whereas Alabama might not be in the same situation. A lot of those guys lack the experience that the guys at USC have. So I'm not so sure they don't go win that game, man. I really think that there's a decent chance that USC goes down there and punches that Alabama team in the mouth and really shocks the world. I think it's a realistic expectation to say, like I said, they only lose 1 to 2 games. I'm not going to go so far as to say that they're going to be competing for a college football playoff berth, but I do think that, it's reasonable to think that they should finish in the top 10. They were arguably one of the best not even arguably, they were one of the best offenses in all college football last season. Like I said, Todd Orlando's bringing that defensive intensity, so they're making up for that lacking area. And I just think that, I think they win the Pac-12. I think they finish top 10, top 15. With only 1 to 2 losses, man. This team is immensely talented, and they were young last year. All of those guys are coming back bigger, stronger, faster, more experienced. The team's only getting better.
Yeah, you make a lot of good points, and I can't wait to watch USC next year. And we're going to wrap things up, man. I appreciate you for coming on. This was great talking to you.
It's a pleasure, man.
Yeah, no doubt. You're doing great things. Be sure to subscribe to my guy Reagan Griffin Jr.'s podcast, The Reagan Griffin Jr. Show. Be sure to check him out on Hoop and Holler podcast. Just type in Hoop and Holler to podcasting platforms. You'll find them via Square One Media. He does a lot of good things. Man, I appreciate you for coming on. This was fun. Thank you so much for watching this video today. Please also note that the Juiciest Sports Podcast is not just a YouTube channel. It is available on all podcasting platforms, including Spotify, Google Podcasts, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts. Also, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share this content with all your friends. This podcast is my favorite thing in the entire world right now. It is my passion. I want more people to listen to this podcast. I really want this podcast to grow. Also, a fun fact about me is that I want to go into the sports broadcasting and media world once I graduate from the University of Toledo, a college in Northern Ohio. I currently am a freshman there right now. I am looking to become one of the next great sports broadcasters and analysts out in the world. And I potentially would like to start my own network if this podcast really truly grows. Or if I fall short of that goal, I would love to work for a big-time network like ESPN or Fox Sports 1. I am open to all networks. So if you believe in my dreams and you see or hear my passion through the screen, be sure to tell all your friends about the Juiciest Sports Podcast. Stay motivated, you guys. Have a God-blessed day, and I'm out.